everybody, please welcome Don Carey. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Diraj, and thank you everyone for being here today. I'm sharing a story today, as Diraj said, about a time I thought about giving up. A number of years ago, I decided that I was going to become a filmmaker. Not a professional filmmaker, but somebody who was an amateur, do this as a hobby, something that I could make small films, share them on the internet. Technology had gotten to the point where it was significantly easier and cheaper than it had been in the past, and I figured all I really needed in order to be a filmmaker was some good ideas, a couple $1,000s for equipment, a chunk of spare time, and a group of willing friends. So I went out on the internet and I learned everything I could about becoming a filmmaker. I started taking my good ideas and turning them into scripts, little screenplays that I could produce once I had a couple $1,000s worth of equipment and a chunk of spare time and that group of willing friends. Unfortunately, my personal life didn't cooperate quite the way I wanted it to. My youngest daughter was diagnosed with a fairly significant chromosome disorder, and my wife developed a chronic illness that took us years and years to finally diagnose. My video equipment money went to the doctors. My production time went to childcare and to different therapies. And without equipment and time, there wasn't really any point in trying to recruit my friends. So I began to worry that this idea of becoming a filmmaker was never going to happen. And the harder I pushed at it, the more I tried, the more miserable I became because it just wasn't coming together. And I seriously considered just giving up the whole thing. But giving up is a difficult thing. Giving up is socially unacceptable. We hear all sorts of quotable quotes about quitting. Quitters never win. Quitting is not an option on the road to success. Pain is temporary. Quitting is permanent. I didn't want to quit. But I also didn't see any possible way that I could succeed. I was a failure as a filmmaker. But as I thought about it and stewed over the idea, I realized I wasn't a complete failure as a filmmaker. I did have some scripts that I had written. Maybe I didn't shoot even a single second of film, but I had written some scripts. I had enjoyed writing those scripts, and in fact, people who read those scripts said they weren't half bad. I realized if I gave up on the idea of becoming a filmmaker, I could embrace the idea of becoming a writer. My great ideas may never become films, they may never be YouTube stars, but maybe I could share those ideas in the form of a book. So I went back to the internet and learned as much as I could about writing and discovered that writing novels is difficult and it's a lot of work. And I had a lot to learn, and I tried and made a lot of mistakes on the way. But I'm happy to report that after 8 years, I actually did succeed, and my first novel was published. 5 years after that, I had a second novel published. Since then, I've completed 2 more full-length manuscripts and a short story. So giving up on becoming a filmmaker allowed me to open the door to the idea of becoming a writer. And that decision opened up additional doors. I've been invited to present at writers' conferences. I participated in book signings. I've served on writing conference committees, and I've done presentations at schools and libraries. I discovered that being up in front of groups of people and speaking and presenting was exciting. It's something that I enjoyed. So much so that it's become a part of who I see myself, as part of my personal identity. In fact, whenever I'm tempted to give up writing, I remind myself that it was writing that gives me this platform and allows me to speak and give presentations. So I now have a new dream, and that is a hardworking retirement where I write books, and I go on a perpetual book tour. I visit schools, I present at conferences. I do inspirational speaking. This is a wonderful way for me to spend my retirement because I am absolutely terrible at golf. Okay? problem is, my writing is just okay. And my speaking is just okay. Fortunately, I have a decade and a half where I can practice my writing and I can practice my speaking. I can find my voice, find a platform that will allow me to do these things that I enjoy and do them in a way that I can support myself in my retirement. Writing is something I can do I can practice in private. But speaking is something that can only be practiced with an audience. I'm really grateful to be a part of Toastmasters because I can come here and I can improve my speaking skills and hopefully make a few new friends in the process. It's never easy to decide whether to keep going or to give up. A wise editor and dear friend of mine told me that if you are on the right path, opportunities and blessings will appear. When I was trying to become a filmmaker, the opportunities just weren't there. But when I became a writer, the blessings filled my life. And that is how I know that giving up was the right decision. Thank you.